Hi, and welcome to Intuitive Journey with Desiree. I'm Desiree Holmes, Scherini, your host. And today I am excited to be joined by Amanda Dodd. And I'm just going to introduce her with my regular cheat sheets here. Okay, she's a transpersonal clinical hypnotherapist and coach who specializes in helping clients break through challenges, create new choices, and make exciting life changes. With a focus on trauma healing, personal and spiritual development, she's passionate about empowering individuals to break free from codependence and become empowered empaths. She's a certified QHHT and IEMT, and we'll be asking her about those, practitioner with extensive training in transpersonal psychology, hypnotherapy, NLP, and coaching. Additionally, she's an alumni of the Southwest Institute of Healing Arts, and she holds certifications in mind body wellness, integrative healing arts, and spiritual coaching. She's also a certified medium with Rita Berkowitz, and she's a 200-hour yoga teacher with Spirit of Yoga and at Usui and Karuna Reiki master and teacher, among other modalities. Recently, she's expanded her expertise to include public speaking, presenting at Hypnothoughts Live on bridging the gap between clients and their loved ones in spirit. She's also a regular presenter at the Michigan Hypnosis Conference, now in its fourth year, and she is excited to continue exploring and sharing her knowledge as a presenter. And I will add that Amanda and I know each other through the National Association of Transpersonal Hypnotherapists, which is right along our lines of bridging that gap between clinical, spiritual, and client-centered way of helping people. And so, welcome, Amanda. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's always fun when we get together.
I know, too fun because Amanda and I think last time I was delighted to be a guest on your show, and I guess that interview is coming out in October, you said?
Closer to October. Yeah,
Yeah,
I've got a backlog.
yeah, I know. Anyway, so, but off camera, we we probably talked for another hour or more.
On either
Because
side.
yeah, we don't get enough chances to see each other, maybe once a
No.
year or so. So this is a lot of fun for me anyway, to catch up and get to talk to you, and even more fun to have you on my show so everyone else can hear about you and join in the conversation. So this is, like I mentioned, this is, my style here is, just talk about your path. I like to introduce people to you about your path to what you do, and then we can spring into a conversation of things we have in common and our experiences with our work. So
We have so much in common.
we do. I know. I felt like I'm reading my bio there. So, Amanda, tell me how you ended up doing what you do.
It took a hot minute because I didn't intend to be here. Like anybody. I mean, most of us don't intend to be here. But the fun thing is when we finally get to see the 24, or what is it? The hindsight is 2020. When we get to see the 2020 of it, it all makes sense. So I knew from childhood I was very highly intuitive. I was seeing spirit as a child, and I just didn't tell anybody. I kept it to myself. I didn't have adults that I trusted to share that with. And I was really fortunate to have some mentors who were maybe unconsciously mentoring me, but still showing me how to cope with me having one foot in this world and one foot in the other. Hence the ADD diagnosis,
Yeah.
because I'm tuned in on multiple levels for sure. And so if you're sitting in a classroom, you're trying to pay attention to the teacher, and then you're noticing their loved one in spirit come in and you're empathing some other student's bad feelings. Yeah, I'm distracted.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on, right? Um, and that wasn't necessarily the life that I had wanted for myself. So by the time I got to my college years, while I did listen to intuition, I tried really hard to just blend in and be normal. That was really all I wanted, was to fit in. And I think a lot of children have the same experience of when they get to 7 or 8 years old, they're realizing, oh, I'm a little different. Uh,
Mm.
and so the running joke in my family was that I had to be competitive every time we went skiing. You've met me. I don't have a competitive bone in my body.
You're pretty chill. I can't picture you being like, you stand
Yeah.
aside.
No, my adults didn't understand me, and that's fine. It is what it is. But we would go skiing, and I would try to be first down the hill, not because I wanted to beat anyone, but because when I was heavily engaged in physical activities, I could sense my angel team around me. And
Mm.
guess what? They were right alongside me skiing down the hill. And sometimes trance was so strong, I would catch myself speaking out loud, and I didn't want anybody else to know.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to call you
Yeah.
crazy.
That's well, right. And no, it's really, and so if adults saw that, they wouldn't have
Yeah.
understood. I could have ended up on way the wrong kind of medication, right? So
Hmm.
glad that didn't happen, but I kept it to myself and ended up marrying someone who did not understand that and kind of mocked that side of my spirituality. Had a huge spiritual awakening at like 16. It's the whole journey. I got the whole empath starter pack, basically. Um, and so after that first divorce and trying to reconcile who I really was when I really stepped into my mediumship a little bit more, realizing, oh, this thing I do has a name. It's a thing.
Yeah.
There's like a whole life to it. Who knew? Right. And that's most of us when we're
And
stepping out
so,
in the world. We don't know those things.
it took the maturity to look around and go, oh, this is not abnormal. This actually is a thing. Yeah. Right.
I think I started around 16, becoming disillusioned with religion and Catholicism. And I was never really into it to begin with because
Mm.
I could sit in church and I could feel the energy. I knew what it felt like to play with angels up the staircase and down the hall. So then to go sit in a pew and have shame or guilt thrown my way was not going to fly with me. I already knew better. And so I really wanted to come out of that. And so by 16, here's really what set me up to know who I was supposed to be. I had a ferret that was absolutely beloved. Animals always have been a big thing for me. I have ferrets even now as an adult. I keep ferrets, they're just part of who I am. My husband just knows and accepts this about me. And, it's wild. So it was in a really small town in Montreal, Quebec, like in the Eastern Township part, and it was Christmas holiday. And my ferret was very sick. She had cancer, and we had known that, and she was getting treatment. And she was about 8 or 9 years old, so that's a good life for a ferret. And that evening, I just noticed something off with her. And all I did was get curious for a moment and say, huh, what do you need? And as I'm asking her, what do you need? I'm not really paying attention to much of anything. And I see an image of a bath and I hear the words die clean. And in that moment, I didn't think, oh, this is telepathy and clairvoyance. This was just
Right.
regular life for me, right? So I'm like, oh, you want a bath? Oh, okay. So I run a bath and I've got her in there and she's warm, she's soapy, and I can feel she's comfortable and I can feel the little love emanating from her. And a few minutes pass, and then I see this horrible image of me holding her head under the water. And I panic. And it's like, oh my God, how can I think something like that?
Right.
I hadn't had the realization it wasn't my thought, it was hers. That was a request. I was 16 and I really loved her, and I would have had no understanding of what she was
Mm.
asking me to do. So I panicked. I took her out. I dried her off, and I said, okay, we're just going to hang out on the bed. I'm going to
Yeah.
spend all the time I can with you. The vets were closed because it was Christmas break. And at some point in the night, I started to drift off and I didn't want to roll over and squish her because she was really kind of fragile. And so I put her in the cage and I drifted off and I had one hand in the cage. And at one point, I have this feeling of um, just large eminence of peace, like a feeling of being complete and whole and not wanting for anything. And I see this big light at the end of the bed. And I'm aware of her silhouette at the end of the bed looking at me. And it's almost like I can see it from multiple perspectives. I know that my body is laying down, but my
Hmm.
spirit is sitting up, and there's part of me watching from behind. It's just really
Wow.
weird. So that's a very complicated thing to try to explore. But as that's happening, I can hear her saying, I love you. Thank you for everything you've done for me. I'm going to miss you. And the kicker was then I'm having awareness of my soul speaking to her, and my lips aren't moving. And I can hear myself saying, I love you. I miss you already. Thank you so much for everything you've done for me. And I'm
Amazing.
having awareness of how sad it is. And it's like, I should be sad. She's dying. She's going to be gone. But that feeling of unconditional love was so just complete and emanating. And when you're in that feeling, you don't want for a single thing. And so at 16, I had the realization of, oh my God, this is where we come from. This is where we go back to. Never had a fear since that moment. So again, I kept that to myself.
Yes, yeah, I can understand. Right. Yeah.
I kind of wish I hadn't, but it was maybe, a good thing that I did in some ways.
Well,
And I didn't,
people
yeah,
would just say, "Oh, you were dreaming. It's your imagination." So
right.
what's the point?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she was gone in the morning. She was
Hmm.
absolutely gone in the morning. And even though it was sad and it hurt, I knew that I did
Wasn't
my
a
level
surprise,
best
was it?
and no.
No.
And I got a full sleep through the night. Somehow I didn't wake up with the upset or anything. It was just that piece kind of sent me off. And then from there, I began looking at the world's religions and trying to understand who are the others like me. I can't be the only one. Where are they? What are they calling themselves? Right.
Hmm.
So from there, I explored all of the world's religions that I could find in high school, which was really weird. But yeah,
Yeah. That's awesome.
um, from from there, I did end up starting to look into my mediumship, probably in my mid 20s. And it was a weird journey. It was an uncomfortable journey. I wasn't always enjoying the process of it because in mediumship, I feel like there's a substantial exchange where the client has to trust you and trust your experience and kind of hand over power in that way. And I always hated being in that position.
Mm.
And so as I practiced and I trained with beautiful teachers, I've been to Lilydale, I've had wonderful world-class teachers, I got really good. Sometimes I scared myself with the amount of info that came through when clients would validate was a little unjarring. And sometimes people can get addicted to that process of hearing the things they need to hear from someone else because it's super validating and
Right.
hearing and healing. But
Hmm.
then they can come addicted to that. And I really didn't want to be stuck in that loop. And right at that time, I'd had some complicated trauma in my own life. And so I started looking around and I found this coach on YouTube. Maybe you know him. It's Richard Grannon, the Spartan Life Coach.
Yeah, I love him. Isn't he great? Yeah.
He's amazing. It's been over a decade. I still can't get enough of his videos.
He's just cute anyway. I watch without the sound. No, I'm kidding.
He's so difficult to look at. I know. If I had
Yes.
to type, that would be it. My husband's not even offended. He just knows.
Yeah. Yeah. I got
But in any case, I took one of Richard's programs for overcoming narcissistic abuse. And
mm,
he had hypnotherapy laced into it, along with coaching, a lot of self
okay.
reflection, emotional intelligence, things like that. And it worked profoundly for me.
Awesome.
And from that moment, I said, okay, I don't want to be in the business of disempowerment. I don't want to be in the business of people handing over their power. I want to help people be more empowered. So, what if I go in the direction of coaching instead? And that took me to SWIHA, Southwest Institute of Healing Arts. And I took 100 hours of hypnosis just to get enough so that I could make Richard Grannon level impacts for people's lives. And then you know how that goes. You start hypnosis, you take a little bit,
And then one
you
thing
feel
leads
the
to
effects.
another. It's like you just on down. Yeah.
Right. So by the time I facilitated a couple of practice sessions, I was getting benefits from facilitating the sessions. And I was like, whoa, 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 hold on a minute. Need to do more. So I went back for my clinical at that point.
Hmm.
And that's more or less how I got here. Yeah.
I love that journey. And I love your story about your ferret. That he just sounds so sweet. I'm sorry. So yeah, I'll kind of share here. It reminds me of my cat just before he died, and he was
Yeah.
666. And the night he couldn't jump up on the bed anymore with me. So he laid right beside my bed, right? And I was like
Mhm.
really hyper alert about him not being well. and he laid right beside my bed. And I remember waking up and, looking over, and he'd look up at me, so he was
I'm
watching
still
me.
here.
I was
I'm
watching
still here.
him. We were keeping watch on each other.
Yeah.
And he waited, and then in the morning when I got up,
Yeah.
he looks at me and he stands up, runs into the other room and dies. Um, it's like, I'm like, but it was almost like he just said, okay, I'm
Yeah.
going to wait it out till she gets up. And
Oh,
I'm like, ah. But
how
yeah.
old were you?
This just a few years ago. This is,
Ah,
yeah, this is
wow.
just one of my,
Yeah.
one of my pets that has passed, but the most recent one is my amazing puka. And I don't know if you have ever seen that I even created an Instagram page for him because
Oh.
he would draw tarot cards and turn them over.
Who was
Like
he reading? Was he reading you? Was he just giving the general
I, I,
home?
I don't, somehow it just, I think one time I was just spreading out my cards and I thought he was playing. Well, he probably
Yeah.
was, but he would reach out, grab a card, and then, flip it over with his mouth. And I
You
thought,
missed
that's
one.
funny. But then he would do it enough that I thought, this is amazing. I had my
Yeah.
daughter with me one time and we said,
Yeah.
let's record this. This is great. Or let's have him be part of this process. And we felt like it was child labor because I'm like, okay, time to make a
Oh,
video, Puka. And
oh,
I think he was, Puka the Oracle Cat, and it was called Puka's Predictions. It's still up. And every now and then I'll post something on there about cats or something. But
yeah.
he would just reach in there, I'd say, Puka, pick a card, and he'd flip it over. So it's like,
That's so incredibly
also,
special.
yeah, one of
Oh,
those, animals we do have these,
yeah.
relationships with. And I think he in
Yeah.
particular, um, we had that sort of a higher level
Yeah.
mental relationship
Yeah.
as opposed to my sweet dog who was codependent. Um, but yeah, anyway, so
I
your
think,
story just reminded me of how connected we can be to
yeah,
our pets, and they're not
there are so
just
many different
furniture.
kinds.
They
Right.
are such a part of our life and have souls and spirits and
Yeah.
communicate with us and are so beneficial to us, our well-being, and they're so concerned about us. And
Yeah.
I've even seen an article about, they say they don't understand why cats purr,
Yeah.
but
Mhm.
there was a study done that cats will seem to get on top of you and start purring
Yeah.
because they sense an illness, and that a cat's purring can help regulate our heartbeat,
Mhm.
create not even just regulate, but create coherence
Mhm.
that is a healthy pattern of heart rate for us. So everybody go get a cat. Let it
They do
purr
a
on
lot more than that as
you. Mm-hmm.
well. So I actually do animal communication now. I haven't updated that
Yeah, I was
bio in
going
a
to
hot
wonder
minute.
about that. Since you already, yeah, tell me
Yeah.
about it.
So I think one thing I'd like to touch on is you talked about the different kind of animal relationships, and there are so many. So Daisy, the ferret that had passed, I want to say that was a soul contract. She
Mm-hmm.
contracted to open me up to all of my gifts because although I was aware of them as a child, I didn't think it was abnormal. I didn't always recognize that it was different. I assumed everybody was having a multi-textual experience like I was. I
Uh-huh.
just assumed that's how the brain worked, right? Until 16. And then it's like, oh, wait a minute. That wasn't my thought. That wasn't my feeling. I started to realize, oh, that was telepathy. Holy crap. Oh, wow, that was source. I experienced source at 16. What? I was in my late 30s by the time I figured that out. By the way, I didn't do it at 16. It took time to go back and reflect, but that was the contract, her contract, and part of the reason, and it was karmic right from the beginning. There's a whole story of synchronicity there too, that I almost didn't get her. I waited about somewhere between 3 and 6 months for her. And as a kid, that's a very long time. She was my second ferret. And it took all the money in my little bank account just to sign up and get her. And I was getting kind of tired because in Quebec, ferrets are only bred seasonally. So they were only available at certain months at the time. And so we were coming towards the end of the season, and I still hadn't gotten a call. And a friend brought me to like this big pet store. And they had cages and they had lots of ferrets. And I was like, oh, it's like an hour away. And I didn't have my bank stuff. Thankfully, my mom didn't just foot the bill and have me pay her back. We went all the way home to get my bank stuff and then headed back. And as we got home to get my bank stuff, there was a message on the voicemail saying, oh, Amanda, come get your ferret. She's ready.
Oh,
And I
wow.
doubled over crying and laughter because it was
Yeah.
just, what are the odds, right? So here I
Mhm.
was about to do something that would have
Like,
set me
not
off
that
course.
ferret,
And,
this ferret. Yeah. You almost
and
blew
when
it.
I
Yeah.
And when I got there, she knew. It was immediate. I got there, she had her back turned to the window, and the minute I stepped in quietly to the room, she turned and looked at me and we locked eyes. And I was like, "Oh, I'm yours, you're mine." Okay. So we have those really strong, sacred soul contract things where we're learning things together. And
Hmm.
then sometimes we don't have that special connection, and so it's not the same. And sometimes we do as much for them. We help their soul elevate and learn lessons. And so they're growing. And so that's why some animals are deeply connected and have character, have soul, and have wisdom, and others just are more pack
Or
mentality.
just
They're
an
like a
animal.
hive mind,
Right.
right? Right. Almost like a NPC. And I hate that term, non-player character, but in that case, it's kind of appropriate sometimes, when you think of like sometimes cattle, right? How they have that more basic instinct and that's how they live.
Hmm.
But I think we get to see different parts. So I have
And
since moved into animal communication, and the things they do and say are just it takes
you
your
got
breath
some
away. It's amazing.
examples of working with somebody?
I do. I've got some really funny ones. Inevitably, they always tattle on their owners. It's
Oh,
so rare that the animals have problems themselves. Usually, what's happening is they're taking on their owner's energy, or there's a change in the owner's life that is not
mm,
helpful for the owner. And so they're really concerned. And then they develop health problems as a way of like saying, hey, I'm really uncomfortable with this. Um, One of my favorite dog requests, well, I have two. One dog actually asked for mint and cucumber in its water, and I'm just like, "Oh wow, you're a spa girly." But actually, the dog was having problems with nausea and needed that little bit of help with digestion and wanted something a little more refreshing.
okay.
But I thought that was like, okay, you were a whole different species. Gotcha.
Yeah.
And then there was another fun one. It was an older dog, and this was just in the middle part of the reading. She's like, you know what? If you really love me, don't ask me to move. Walk over me or go around. Do not make me move. And I thought, wow, that's such an odd thing to say. And so when I told the owner, she's like, oh my God, I always make her move because she plants herself in the middle of my path. And it's like the dog feels deeply disrespected when you do that.
That's, oh,
Sometimes they've asked for things like grounding mats.
hmm.
Particularly when we are coming out of winter. If you live in the more northern states, they miss the grass, but they miss the natural grounding that happens
Energy. Yeah.
outside, and they get the winter blues. So things like asking for a heating pad, asking for a grounding mat, asking for touching on their paws and helping to kind of rebalance their energy. It's fun. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I've seen it's been a while, but I've seen a couple videos of people that psychically
Yeah.
work with dogs, and there were uh, some almost like you say mediumship when you have evidential work that the dog, the medium would be, this not medium but the psychic working with the pet would say, she says that you've been doing such and such, and the person is so embarrassed, oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. She
Yeah.
doesn't like that. And
Yeah.
it, you know, what a, especially, people love their pets, just like family and children. So that's a great skill to be offering. Would you, is it something that you think you could do remotely? or would you have to
Absolutely.
be? Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think it's correct when you say the word medium because the
Yeah.
animal can be living or can be departed, but we're just connecting to their unique imprint.
Hmm.
Usually I find either the picture or the full name is enough for me to get started.
Okay. Just like it would be with a person that's deceased.
Yeah.
Right.
With a person that's deceased, I
Yeah.
don't even want that bias. I don't want to know anything. And that's usually the way I prefer to work if I have to. These days, I don't even do mediumship anymore because as I started into hypnotherapy, what I was finding was spirit kept popping up into my sessions, which I think probably happens
Mm.
to you as well, that the loved ones in spirit are there and you're like, oh, I'm aware of you. Okay, great.
Y-
And then at some point, the client may or may not say, oh, my so and so is here. Awesome. What do they want you to know? Right. And
Yeah.
so from there, I found, yeah,
I was going to say in my training, that's been discussed a lot about what do you do with pop-ups, and his suggestion was acknowledge it, but at the end of your session,
yeah,
you can say, "Hey,
yes.
are you open to hearing this?" Uh, I don't have it happen a lot with in hypnosis. I have
Mhm.
practiced particularly to shield.
Yeah.
So, and I sometimes feel like I've gotten too good at it because
Mm,
I feel like it takes more time than it
yeah.
used to open up again.
Yeah.
So
I think
even
something that
before a
can be
session, I'm
happening
just
is we,
like, nobody
yeah,
bother me.
yeah,
Keep the space clear. And of course, only for the highest good of all. And, nobody, I do a lot of clearing stuff. And
yeah,
people will say, aren't you afraid that you're going to let in demons? No, no, they're not invited. Or whoever, negative
right.
energies are uninvited. And I just
Mhm.
do the process. And I think there's a lot to that,
Yeah.
to that, and expectation. I think people, they're expecting something negative to come in, or if I'm
Mm,
expecting a spirit to come
mhm.
in. But with the mediumship, like you, I also don't like the bias. I
Yeah,
I don't
right.
even often ask for a name. Like I just
Mhm.
say it may be the person you want to come through. It may be someone else who comes through. So I prefer to get that evidential stuff so that I know and they know that it's somebody honestly trying to reach them, because there are the mediums that say, "Oh, I have your father here. He loves you."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, and
Mhm.
he says that he's proud of you," and all these generic things. And I
Right.
specifically asked for evidence that
Mhm.
only they would. There's no way I
Yeah.
could know. It's not general knowledge. And then I go into any messages that they, you know, are asking for that I'm getting. It actually is. I find but they don't drop in on me.
Mhm.
I need to
Yeah.
be in the state. The only time anyone's dropped in on me were people close to me.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
uh, like, oh, hi, you're here.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Mhm.
Thanks. And it's usually been at a time when I'm not with somebody else or otherwise engaged. So,
Yeah. I think it can differ a lot because every hypnotist has things that they are meant to do with their hypnotherapy. They are meant to be of service in a certain way. And I think even though I was trying really hard to avoid mediumship at that point altogether, I wasn't even interested in doing readings. I completely stepped away. It was a life experience actually that brought me back to it and validated it. And I can share that if you like.
yeah,
It's interesting and
please
unique,
go
but
ahead.
uh, so by that time I was living in Texas and I was full on training with Sweeha. So my mindset was purely of coaching and hypnotherapy and learning integrative therapies and things like that. And one day I'm sitting in the bath and I'm good and comfortable. And you know what happens when we're in the bath? We start to zone out, drop into
Mhm.
theta accidentally. And I look over because I feel something across the room and I see my biological dad.
Mm.
And he's beaming that full unconditional love energy. And he's got my oh mummy and um my dada next to him. And I'm like, oh shit.
And I'm naked.
Oh shit. If you're there, you're no longer here.
Oh.
And I in that moment, I don't even know why I did this. But in that moment, I think because on some level I grew a little hesitant with mediumship. I didn't want to be engaging with it in a way that's disempowering or unhelpful.
Hmm.
And so I wanted to pull back from that because I've had to overcome codependency. And it's like, well, isn't that just another way that codependency could come through me? And
Mm.
so I was very conscious of it. And so when I saw him, I said, oh, no, if this is real, someone's going to find me. Someone's going to tell me. When they do, I won't doubt my abilities anymore. I will bring it. I'll share it. I'll help more people. I'll be a good girl.
Right.
Thankfully, it took a couple of years, so I didn't have to jump right in. But then when someone did find me, we traced it back and he did pass on that day.
Wow.
And it was like, oh, crap, now I have a promise to keep. Why did I do that? So from there, I did. And so I started teaching mediumship again. But I really tried, like Alan Chips did, to keep it separate from sessions. And I've had that training as well of if, it's not the client's experience, don't impose your stuff on them. And
Hmm.
ultimately, what started happening was if I didn't acknowledge them, the client would.
And
Yeah.
that's valid. Yeah, we could even in a session, ask, use leading questions of, are you experiencing anything unusual? How is your energy feeling? And open up, or even have them after, under hypnosis or after hypnosis, have them open up if they are open to, are you open to expanding your awareness and allow it to come through, uh, which is more empowering for them as well, and gets out the middleman. Also, like you said, I to use it just as validation for them. Like some people can be codependent, like go back and back again, to getting something positive. But sometimes I like some of my clients um, have, like I had one where her mom had passed, and so I found some evidential stuff. Okay, I've got her. This is what her bedroom looks like. This is like some names of people that are coming up. She's like, that's my uncle. That's my dad. I'm like, okay. And, but she had some useful questions. What should I do with the house? When, if I should sell it? Where do I, specific, well, what does she think? And I find it like this interesting little journey into someone else's life. So I find it interesting and enriching to leave her with some guidance, because when your mom's not there to ask.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, just the other day, my mom's passed, and just the other day, I had this weird little blip. She probably sent it to me because I've been asking her for some questions recently. And I woke up and I'm brushing my teeth, and I thought to myself, oh, I need to call my mom. And I went,
Oh,
wait a minute.
yeah.
But it was as if it was, say, 20
Yeah.
years earlier or something, just a thought that I would normally have had.
Or you need to call your mom, and that just
Yeah,
looks like a different process these days.
yeah. And I felt like maybe if I picked up my phone, I'd get a clearer,
She's like, you know how to do this. Call.
yeah. And you've heard of stories like that actually happening. But I asked her, and I have yet to do it, and she keeps reminding me. I've lost a piece of jewelry in the house someplace. I don't think it was stolen, because they would have taken more, right? Whoever. But what did I do with it? And it's a very nice piece of jewelry. And so I've asked her, and it's just so real sometimes when you're communicating, because she's so funny,
Yeah.
because she would have these she had an accent. She was from Cuba, and this very unique voice, like this, very sweet. And she said something, and this is when I know I'm talking like my dad also, like when I had a communication with him, they'll just use these phrases. And so when I said, I can't find it, maybe you can see where it is and tell me where to go look, because I keep looking and wasting my time looking and it's not in the places I'm looking. And she says, this is serious stuff, which is a phrase that she would use if it was serious stuff to her. And I'm like, okay, Mom, you're right. This is serious stuff. But try not to laugh at her because she's coming through to try to help me. And I have yet to actually take apart that drawer and look. I'll get back to you and let you know if it was indeed in the drawer that she told me to go, what I thought I was hearing. Along the same lines, though, of people just knowing, like when my sister passed in 2014, she was sick. She was in hospice. We were all in town to see her. Everyone had just seen her the night before. We had like a little family reunion, one of those, and we were all in the room with her. And so it was almost like, when you're waiting to see somebody, but we were all together the night before she passed. And I woke up at maybe 6:30 in the morning. And I'm like, oh, Karen, okay, you're gone. And then about 15 minutes later, my nephew called me and I said, I know. Before he said anything, I said, I know. She told me. Same thing happened. That's what I'm saying. It's been family members. Same thing happened with my godmother, who was also sick, but she was sick at home. And I was driving down the street. I was in Sedona on a trip. And this wave just came all through here. It was like if somebody were to take a ball of energy and just throw it. It went, and I'm like, oh, and I start crying. I'm like, Anne, I knew. Oh my gosh, thanks for saying goodbye. That was that was crazy, and I didn't want to. I sent a message to her daughter. I didn't say, hey, your mom just died, didn't she? I just said, hey, just checking in because I'm really feeling your mom today. And she replied, yeah, that's because she just died about half an hour ago. So it does, they will, make themselves known. And I think it probably happens to more people than they're aware, and they just don't put unlike us, who maybe are expecting it because we know that this happens. For the listeners, have you had an experience where somebody passed and some synchronistically you had some physical experience or thought of them or flash of a memory with them, and then find out, oh, they just died? So I'm sure it happens for other people, but they've dismissed it, like you used to try to do, or I probably have. I'm trying to think if how many times I've done that before now. Anyway, so it's just something for, I think, everyone to be aware of if you want to be more in touch with the energies around you. And like you talk about them, the multiple layers, they're all there. We just, can dial in or dial out. So.
Yeah. I think it is more mundane. So when I teach people, and as I've been learning, that is what I've known is, yeah, we all absolutely have this. You talked about it earlier. Intention is a huge key part. If you have the intention not to experience things, well, guess what? You're not going to experience things. Of course, there are caveats. There are sometimes big things in life that will happen, and even if you've blocked that off, they will still arrive if you're meant to have that experience. It's like holding a
Mhm.
beach ball under the ocean waves. You can't hold it back all the time. Sometimes we're meant to have certain things happen. But for the most of the people so now what I've done with it since then is it's changed. And so now, rather than having loved ones just pop up, I let people know that if they want to experience mediumship, I'm no longer going to give them a reading. I'm going to put them into trance and they're going to have that one-on-one themselves with
Mhm.
me being on the outside, just holding sacred space.
Right.
And for me, it's a huge difference because, like I said at Hypnothoughts, would you rather someone describe to you what it's like to eat a peach, the flavor, the texture, the temperature, all of those things, or would you rather just take a bite and have that experience? It's
Right.
taking the bite that makes the change. Let them take the bite, essentially, is what I have moved into doing.
That's also
Um,
a process that I was taught with my teacher. He calls it reunion, and he does
mm,
sort of like a guided meditation hypnosis
mhm,
for the individual
yeah,
to go to that space with them. So I think it's really valuable as an option. But as we
it
know, some
is. Yeah.
people are afraid or
Yeah.
resistant. So,
Mhm.
which is, it
Yeah.
takes some education to allow them to open up and not be afraid or to go with
Yeah.
that, just like hypnosis of any
Yeah.
sort.
I
I
think
want to
that's
ask
the missed
you,
opportunity, though, is people don't distinguish between mediumship and hypnosis. And it's like, well, here's the thing. They're talking about the same thing in different languages. A medium is going to say clairvoyance. A hypnotist is going to say, oh, they're having a visual hallucination. It's the same thing. It's all semantics. And so when I was training in hypnosis, it's like, wait a minute. I know this feeling. I've been doing this my whole life. And that's my theory as to why we have so much doubt and why the fear creeps in with mediumship and with hypnosis, because they're in that part of the brain that is imaginative. And that's why it has that
mhm,
feeling of being made up. But if you were going to make it up, you would have made up very specific things. Probably would have been in your favor, would have been all rainbows and butterflies, right? So
right,
why the specific weird info that you got?
exactly. And with doing past life regressions, uh, that's why I'm not Cleopatra in a past life because I was some barefoot boy and in the woods or something instead. And this is a good lead in to the what thought I was going to bring up is the QHHT. If you want
Mhm.
to tell the listeners, what is that?
So QHHT is the Dolores Cannon signature method of past life regression. Typically, good old Dolores used to do her sessions between 6 to 8 hours long. And so you're really spending the day with your client. We spend 2 hours on the front end, typically, unless they have more to share. Dolores used to say it takes as long as it takes. She was doing this before I was ever even a thought.
Okay.
She left us, I want to say, in 2014, but she left behind her work. And the thing that makes it vastly different, aside from the length of the session, is that towards the end of the session, you're going to get to higher self. And so it is your highest expression possible of your soul that will come through to answer your questions. That is such a phenomenal experience. It can be blocked for some people, just like everything else. Fear is a very low vibration and it'll hit you and take you down from enjoying the really high highs, right? So,
Mhm.
and of course, there are other things. I also do spirit releasement. Dolores Cannon did not teach that in QHHT. Shouldn't believe that at all. Me being a medium, I've had different experiences that I can't just ignore. So I went on to train for other things with that. So sometimes entities can get in the way of a good past life regression or getting to higher self. And that's something I'm also aware of. But there's something about that higher consciousness coming in where the client is at that point not checked out. Like most people I find today are present. When Dolores did this, she had what were called somnambulists. And you know what a somnambulist is, but for
Mhm.
your audience, the somnambulist is someone who goes so deeply into trance that they have no recall, no memory. My spouse is one of those. His sessions are really impactful.
Yeah, I've
because
had
he gets
a
completely out of the
couple
way.
clients that did that, and it was surprising to
Eerie.
them.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and me, I'm like, you don't remember what you said? Wow, you were crazy. I don't say it that
Yes.
way, but
Yeah.
really intense experiences sometimes. And yeah.
Yeah.
So
When I did my
go ahead. I'm
yeah.
sorry.
When I did my spouse's first session during my practice round, so a QHHT practitioner has to do 25 practice sessions before they're allowed to actually take clients. So my spouse was my first, and I knew he was a somnambulist because I'd practiced past life regression on him before. He's the kind of person who will change the figuration of his face, the sound of his voice when he goes into trance, and he is fully embodied in whatever character is being brought to life at that moment. So when higher self came through, the hair on my arm stood up, and I regretted not recording it because he had this big booming consciousness that came through him. And we got to ask those really deep questions of why was he having the life experience that he's having? Because he lives with chronic pain.
Oh,
And I've always wanted to help him be at ease with that, to get past that.
hmm.
And we actually were not able to, much to my surprise. Now, some people can do a QHHD session and do healing. There have been amazing recordings of sessions where people have moved and regrown bones and released toxins and flushed their system and healed spontaneously from
Fantastic.
various things. So it's really depending on what's in the person's contracts and their lessons,
Hmm.
what's in alignment for them, the vibration they can access. It's fascinating to explore.
Yes, that is. And I'm not, I know of QHHT, but I've
Yeah.
really never, you know, ex experienced it or trained in it. So I find it fascinating to hear more about like that. How about IEMT?
IEMT is so very different.
Okay.
um, and I think the way that I practice it, it is more hypnotic in nature than what is probably made and taught.
Uh-huh.
But it was made by Andrew T. Austin, who is an incredible man. He looked at kind of EMDR and some of those things, and he'd had other
Hmm.
trainings as well. I think he trained with Connie Ray Andreas some. And so he had a lot of understandings of NLP and language patterns, and then brought in that piece with the eye movement. So our eyes have an incredible ability to help us change the memory, the feelings attached to a memory. So if someone, say, is having complex PTSD and is having an emotional flashback means that they are going to be feeling the way they felt at the time of the trauma. They may or may not be conscious of it. And then if they go to do something that triggers memory in their brain that says, hey, this is the same, they might flight into panic or flight, or maybe even fight, depending on what was happening. IEMT can actually disrupt that process. And it's really incredible. So people come in purely to deal with trauma. A lot of these are my logic minded people. They're not usually the transpersonal end, but some can be. And they are coming in because they are reliving some of the most difficult days of their life, and it's getting in the way of the things that they really want to be doing.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Ah, what other questions do I have? The thing is, I have so many
Yeah.
rabbit holes we can go down. Let me think which rabbit hole I'm really curious about going down next with you. We've we've hit on the mediumship, we've hit on hypnosis,
Well,
and
let's tie
some
them
of the
together a little bit.
okay, please do.
So it took me a minute to realize, how are these things even related? And at first, it didn't make a whole lot of sense to me of, okay, I have a profound understanding of trauma. I've had a lot of personal experience with trauma. I've helped a lot of people with trauma. How does that relate to spiritual awakening? And then go into some of like the things like past life regression. And it's because not all of us have expanded our gifts naturally. Some of us come by our psychic abilities and our sixth sense, if you will. Somebody was speaking on this. I think it was an interview on Diary of a CEO. Tara, and I forget her last name, but she was saying we have something like 36 senses. We're
Okay,
talking about five most of the time.
right.
Right? And so for some people, trauma will trigger spiritual awakening.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's at those lowest of lows when they've tried everything else to heal themselves that they'll turn to spirituality, they'll have experiences, they'll find relief, they'll find healing, they'll find
Mm-hmm.
resolution. And that's
And
how the two kind of tie in.
isn't it funny how so many, at least of my clients, they come for hypnosis after they've tried everything. And
Yes.
I often say to the general public, try hypnosis first. How about that? Because it is quick, it is effective, it can be very deep, it can, it can be just clinical and deal with a bad habit at the surface, or it can go deep and go to the core of, some trauma or anxiety to deal with it. They will have taken medication. Many of them have been or currently are seeing a therapist or even psychiatrist for help, and they say there's still something that I just can't clear. I've been working with a therapist, and just there's still something. And what I find so gratifying when I get a client come to me, that they have the awareness that they're at that point that there's something subconscious going on. There's something maybe at a different level, different plane of reality, even depending on how spiritual they are, that is affecting them. It's really interesting when someone comes from a past life and says, I'd like to know if this is rooted in a past life. And just, yeah. And even I think when they do a past life, I tell them when I do the process, I can ask to go back to a past life that has the answers they're looking for in this lifetime, or guide them for these issues, or find the source, whatever it might be. And I say, but you might go someplace else, a different past life, that may take some time to analyze and say, why did my higher self, why did my subconscious take me there? And put those pieces together. Maybe there's more information there than, or maybe that is the core issue, and it'll take time to see it, to say, oh, I had a recent client who, this was not her major issue, but she had claustrophobia, and that was just one of the things she mentioned, right? Oh, when I've got claustrophobia, I can't stand being tight or small, or wrapped up or anything. And but that was just an aside that she was mentioning. But there were other things, and went back into a past life, and she immediately dropped in to being on a table, 14 years old, strapped down. And there was a man looking at her. And it was just really interesting, because at first I thought he was good, but I realized now he's bad. He's really bad. And I said, okay, let's go back or forward to a different, after we processed through that, talked about that for a bit. Where are you? What's the room look like, etc. Different time she's in the kitchen with her mom, cooking. The boys are outside playing. She's making the bread. Her mother's at the stove making soup. She sees horses outside, but it turns out that she was in her past life a victim of the Holocaust medical. The guy stuck a needle in her, and he was mad at her because something didn't work the way he wanted it to. But it's like, well, I guess maybe we've arrived at why you don't like to be tied down or strapped down. And for the audience, also add that just like mediumship, I like to ask the client for things that are evidential, so they can, because it feels, honestly, like you talked about, it can feel like you're making this story up, but it feels too real. And both of us have been hypnotized and had the process done. There is such a difference. It's, if anyone's had just such a realistic dream sometimes, that you wake up crying or shaking or laughing, that normally you can have a dream and it's just a story you're watching, but sometimes you're really experiencing this other world somehow. So it feels so real. And she had tears coming down her face. And it's so it's a different thing. And to help someone not think, oh, I've just made this up, and question their experience. We ask about what's your name, try to get the first and last name, try to get the year, try to get the name of the town and other people involved. And then the client can go back and explore. And I've had the same experience of for myself, getting an address even, and then being able to look up that address and find the same house. It, a unique house because it was on one of those weird corners, it's corner house like that. And with everything was the same, except for in my experience, it was white, but it was also the 1800s. And now it's red brick. And so I'm like, oh, okay. But how about you? Experiences like that where you found validation either for yourself or some of your clients have?
For myself,
Mm-hmm.
from a different perspective, absolutely. I had this, and this was recent actually. But there were two separate things that I would touch on. So the first one was QHHT. Having, I've had a lot actually. Now that there have been a lot, I'm having a hard time choosing. I'd always had a phobia of snakes, like a
Mm-hmm.
full-on lifetime phobia. From the time that I was a little girl, my whole body would freeze and just tears would come down, and I couldn't explain what was happening to me. But I'd never had a this lifetime reason or bad interaction with a snake. Never happened. I used to actually have what I call past life flashbacks, where at least once or twice a month I would dream of snakes and I would get up from the bed and I'd be looking through my bed trying to find snakes. And that happened all the way through adulthood until I had one of my first QHHT sessions. And I'd always had an affinity for ferrets, always had an affinity. An affinity with snakes, clearly. Always had an
Nice.
affinity for Egypt, had an affinity for things like four-poster beds with lush materials on them, belly dancing. I would come out and belly dance at like 2 years old in my diaper. No, nobody taught me that, you know.
Right.
Those were things that were innate. So those things that we absolutely love and those things we absolutely don't, they're all substantial and significant. But it was not the lifetime I was thinking. I had an affinity for Cleopatra. She had big, green, beautiful eyes, and so do I. And so I always felt like such a kinship for her because she kept ferrets and she also disliked snakes. And so my soul was like, wow, this feels like home every time I would hear Cleopatra's story.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's why so many famous past lives exist, is because we see those commonalities. The soul is like, yes, this resonates.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean that's that. So no, I got into the past life and no, I was not Cleopatra, big letdown. What I was even more bizarre. I was something called, well, I was from Lumeria and I had escaped and went to Egypt and I was a cat person. So as I'm there in regression, I see these big furry paws in the sand. I'm like,
When
you've
they
got
say
to
look
be
down at
kidding
your
me.
feet, you're like, I've got paws. Yeah.
They are big lioness type paws. Like,
How fun.
um,
Yeah.
but I was like bipedal. I was like walking on 2 feet. So there's a species of ET called Irma. I
Mm-hmm.
would be what would be classified as an Irma being. It's a fascinating loophole and thing to go down in terms of like rabbit holes and things. And in that life, I did actually belly dance. I did heal a lot of people, and I did die to snakes, and I did have ferrets. And in that life, I had a four-poster bed with all of that lush, beautiful material that I loved, and the snakes got in the bed and did get me, and I died to toxicity and poison. And so when we released it, the next day, I'm outside in the grass with the dogs watching them run. My husband comes over and he's looking at me like I'm from another planet.
Yes, because you have big furry paws. But
Well, not then, but thankfully not. No, so I'm standing there and I'm in the grass and he's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, what's your deal?" He's like looking me up and down and I look me up and down. He's like, "You're in the grass, barefoot. There are snakes out here." I never would have done that before. I wouldn't have even wore Crocs with no anything outside, anything that could get in. So as of the next day, the phobia was gone. It took me another 6 months to realize that the past life flashbacks had stopped. I haven't had one since. It was actually my spouse who helped me realize that that had ended. So healing is immensely subtle. And that's what I
yes.
tell my clients when they come for past life regression, and whether it's QHHT or between lives or spirit releasement, healing is subtle. You might not be the first one to realize the things that have shifted. We don't notice the absence of pain. We don't notice the absence of discomfort. It's just gone.
Mhm.
Right.
Yes. And that's exactly the what I tell my clients
Yeah.
when they say, "How will I know if it's working?" And not about just necessarily past life or the changes, but if they want to change a habit, say it's
Hmm.
nail biting or something. That's one of my very favorite examples to use. Was someone came to me for nail biting, hadn't uh, had never stopped, been biting his nails since he was 12, real down to the quick, and did a session with him. Told him, let me know if you how things are going. And he happened to be somebody I knew through an
Hmm.
organization. And when I happened to see him a couple weeks later, I said, "Hey,
Yeah.
how's it going?" And he just kind of looks at me like realizing, "Oh, that's right. We did hypnosis."
Yeah.
He looks down at his hands. I look at his hands. His nails are looking healthy. And he says, "I just realized I haven't even put my
Yeah.
hand in my mouth since I saw you." But he
Yeah.
didn't realize that he wasn't doing it. And
Yeah.
so I tell my clients,
Yeah.
it's really subtle. You
Yeah.
may just, after a little bit, have a sudden awareness of, like, I'm not having that problem
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
You may not,
Or it's validated from a friend or a loved one.
or you
Yeah.
may not even notice. It's
Yeah.
just you're not suffering from whatever it was, and you
Isn't it
won't think about
wild?
it. It'll be gone. And
Yeah.
also, when I use hypnosis, especially for a change, a thought change, habit change, I say under hypnosis, it's gone. It's
Hmm.
not something that
Yeah.
has anything to do with you anymore. You
Yeah.
used to. This was something before, but now, and as a hypnotherapist, you might understand this too. There are certain phrases that I have found work really well that are
Yeah.
sort of universal. And that one, before now,
Mhm.
that was something. Now, that is not. It's just,
Yeah.
it's just not. And it works really well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That client that did the past life regression that had the Auschwitz memory, I was
Mm.
wondering, did she have any medical fear, like fear of injections or needles, because some of the equipment might have been like triggering, I wonder.
We didn't get into that. She was,
Yeah.
when we did the processing afterward, I think I didn't ask. I didn't ask. She didn't bring it up. I also didn't
We
want
don't
to
always think of
add,
it.
I didn't
Yeah.
want to add the idea. Are you afraid of needles too?
Yeah.
And maybe she
Well,
wasn't.
it's good because sometimes they don't realize they
I,
have that discomfort, and then again, it's just gone, so they don't realize.
yeah, I didn't want to add to the trauma because she was
Yeah.
processing quite a lot and still really
Yeah.
feeling the experience and the sadness
Mhm.
of what had taken place.
Yeah.
Uh, she So I don't know. She did not bring up a problem with medical uh, stuff and all that.
I
She's
wouldn't
coming
have been
back though. She's coming
surprised.
back
Yeah.
she wants to do another past life
Yeah.
regression. specifically asking about the people that are in her life now, and why. Like, what's that about? And also, she's coming back for some weight loss. So she had can't call it. It was a good experience, even if it wasn't like, yay, I feel amazing. It was a wow experience for her. And we did look up the town, and that town does exist.
Yeah.
So that's always.
I think they sense the relief, even if they can't pinpoint it or remember that it was from that session. It's like, you know what? I felt so much better after.
To understand the why of something. Okay. That wasn't great, but now, okay, I get it. You brought up narcissism earlier. Understanding, and this is such a segue, but understanding why people think the way they think and getting into their thought process, even if it's warped, I find in my own experience, helps me to release the victimhood, the trauma, they are just being what they are. It's like a rock
but
is a
it's
rock.
ultimately not actually personal. They have this mask to maintain. You're a threat to it. It's not even about you, really. Yeah.
It's like a rock is a rock. If you stub your toe on the rock, you don't blame the rock. The rock is doing what rocks do. So your job and your job for protection and in your life is to walk around the rock and keep yourself safe from the rock. Yeah, sorry, that was a segue, but that metaphor, it's just.
It's kind of perfect, actually. I am going to be taking a year-long training with Renaya Fraser, and it is a NARC program. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's amazing.
No, I haven't. Wow.
She's got, so there are, I want to say 3 to 4 different modules. One module is just hypnosis, one module is just coaching. But it's all about overcoming narcissistic abuse in a more concise way, because I've been doing it on my own, but it's not something that came from a manual. It's just my own experiences that I've worked from. And it was effective, but I wanted to go deeper because I'm seeing a trend in more and more of my clients having that challenge and that experience. Yeah. So perfect.
And
you were intuiting.
and it does take quite a bit of either time, energy, or introspection and work to see the pattern that we are part of. So there's the personal responsibility of the victim to step out of that victimhood and not repeat the pattern.
We can get off that ride at any time. So why do we participate?
And some people just stay and do it over and over again. But I think you said something at the beginning of our conversation about trauma putting you in a place of, it pushed you up into a new level of awareness, also improvement for yourself. And I can relate to that. I had a very similar experience where once I addressed it and overcame it for myself, and I put that in my book, that it took me way too long, I feel like, to get where I got finally.
I think you got to give yourself credit, because there's no manual. There is no thing in society. You had no help. So it took what it took.
Yeah. And it did. It took what it took. It took me finding just the right book. Talk about like coincidences or synchronicity. I'm in a bookstore back when Borders still existed. Really miss it. And there's a book in my face. You know how they used to have them up on the wall on end caps stuff? Yeah. And I was going through it, and I look, and there's this book, and it has the title. I forgot what the title was, like something about narcissists, but it had like 3 or 4 questions. Do you find this? Is this happening? Is that happening? And I'm like, yes. I felt like a commercial. Wow. Yes, absolutely. And the ridiculous, it was about being gaslit, being diminished, feeling under, the typical stuff, right?
Yeah.
I, of course, bought that book. And the thing was, what I discovered was I was in it, so I couldn't see it. And I talk about that a lot,
Yes. The
that
fog.
I was in it. And even though
Yeah.
my degree's in psychology, I read stuff, I didn't see what was happening
Yeah.
because I compare it to being in the ocean and the
Yeah.
waves are all so big and you're just floundering out there and you can't see that
Yeah.
there's a dock right there because the
Yeah.
waves are so big. And all I needed to do was calm down, take a look
Yeah.
around, and swim for the dock. But
Yeah.
it does take a while. So my goal, my experience was, I got where I
Yeah.
was taking these steps. Uh,
Yeah.
I was like, I need to help other people
Yeah.
take a shortcut, and that's what I said. I can
Yeah.
help you find a shortcut
Huh.
because been there, done that.
Even if you don't choose to, the people are going to find you because they know you have that wisdom. They can sense it innately. And even if you don't set out to help people with that,
Yeah,
they're going to turn up.
I'm the worst for being in like the ladies' room, and my
Oh, God.
and the next thing you know, we've had a whole session, but life coaching session. It's like,
For me, it's the airplane. Anytime I'm on the airplane.
oh, I can't help myself from wanting to help people. I was thinking about that the other day. It's just maybe what I'm here to do. This
Yeah.
I'm just supposed to. I will be in a like a grocery store or something. People think I work there
Yeah.
because I'm telling them where to find the whatever they're looking for.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, oh, it's right down there. You go down. So it's right about aisle 5, and they're like, thanks. Where can I find the such
Yeah.
and such? And I'm, oh, that's a, whereas the people that
Yeah.
actually work there have no clue. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, I wanted to, probably close up as like we can keep going down this rabbit hole. But on the topic of trauma and recovery, let's talk about your show, your podcast, and is it also on YouTube, right? So
It is.
tell
Yeah.
me about it.
So my podcast is called Trauma and Transcendence, and we
Mhm.
explore topics just like this. So primarily identifying trauma, understanding it better. I have wonderful guests like Desiree who come on to share insights and their own journeys. And often I look for the links between. I look for where the trauma has had moments of transcendence to help them bridge that connection if there is one to be bridged. And a lot of the times it's just me enjoying having a good conversation and going down some really weird places. But I do it for my own enjoyment, if I'm being honest. And if you enjoy these same things, well, then you're in good company.
Right? Same here. Same here. It really is. Like
Yeah.
I said in the beginning of the show, it's just a wonderful opportunity to get together and talk with you and other people that we can share a lot between ourselves and have fun talking, but also
Yeah.
hopefully share some information to the audience that is useful and helpful to them. And on that note, I would like to also encourage people, just like I said about mediumship or knowing a feeling, to start paying attention to yourself, paying attention to how you feel when you're around somebody or in a particular situation, that focus on your personal energy and, do I feel good? Do I feel sick? Do I feel, and start gaining some self-knowledge and using it. And of course, you can always reach out to someone like Amanda or myself, but the more self-awareness you have, the sooner you can take advantage of an opportunity to go in the direction that will best benefit you. And that's, back to my point that I felt like I took too long. The red flags were there, the feelings were there, but I was waiting for maybe some external force to drop in my lap, like that book.
Oh,
God was finally like, okay,
yeah.
here's a book. If you ignore this, I don't know what to do with you.
And
Just
maybe
finding
you
the right.
needed that experience, though. Maybe you needed to,
Exactly.
because that's what most of our clients go through as well.
Mhm. And not that I would have choose to have a negative experience, but I do think it helps me when I'm working with someone and they're going through it to say, I get you.
Yeah.
like I said, been there, done that, just like you have, and you can relate. Anyway, is there anything you want to close on? I do want to say that in the details, I will have how to reach Amanda, where links for her many different social media pages, her website, and if you'd like to find out more about her, just keep track and subscribe. So I really appreciate you being here. Anything that you'd like to add? Any last bits or pieces before we say goodbye?
I always love our conversations. They are always too short. It's just the nature of our relationship. I think we have some really fun mirroring happening just with the parallels in our lives. You this morning had sent a video and it was perfect. It was right on time. So I had some other colleagues having a conversation about our past lives really past, or can some of those Egypt, Lemuria, Atlantis lives, can they actually be in the future or parallel
Yes, I
or
did share that with you. Wasn't that
yeah,
fun?
and so you did. And so you found like the neuroscience that actually showed us the little bit of, yeah, you're actually perceiving ahead of time. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think that was like the perfect thing to tie in today. So I don't know if you could share that video as well, but that would be
Yeah,
worth it. Yeah,
if I will find it and actually put it in the details as well for anyone who wants to click on that. And what science is doing, thank goodness, is finally getting on board with true reality, not just material reality. Like if you
yeah,
can't see it, touch it, smell it, feel it, it doesn't exist. They are,
yeah,
quantum and sub quantum,
yeah,
multi-dimensional. It's just spoken as yes, that's right. And I what Amanda's referring to is I ran across scrolling, found a little video about, I would say maybe precognition
yeah,
uh, of a life or experience to come, but it's is time. And I do say this to people. I like to say we think of time like this, but if you were to turn the timeline like that, and even think visually more vertically, there's the future, there's now, there's the past. The time is stacked, and
mhm,
when you dial, you can
yeah,
travel because it's not you're not going anywhere. You're not physically
yeah,
going anywhere. It's just the frequency and the attention you're paying to those places, and that's why sometimes we know things that are going to happen, or memories from a time that's not in this lifetime can come up, and it's all happening at the same time. So that will be in there too. Thanks for bringing that up, and that's a whole nother rabbit hole for another day, right? Oh,
it certainly is. I've got a couple of podcasts I'm going to send you as well because I know you'll enjoy them. But
thank
thank
you.
you so
Yeah.
much for having me.
Thanks for being here. This is fun. And so thank you for being here with Intuitive Journey with Desiree, and I'll see you next time.